give them credit for. How many of you have of a keyword? How many of you? And haven't you found it totally freaking amazing that they can't figure out that if I'm the most relevant result, or if I'm the #1 result for the word psychic, that for some reason I'm the 17th most relevant result for the word psychics? It's not that hard to think about and to say, well, wow, you know, these search engines, we give them a lot of credit for being smart, and I do. But they also have a pretty long ways to go in the way that they go about returning results. So if you focus more on your community, what's right, revenues, instead of just rankings, I think you're going to be a lot better off. And now I have my slides, so I'm sorry. Please bear with me. All right, so now I have my slides. Excellent. All right. And there we go, finally. All right, so I've always said, go buy a heap of patience. You know, this stuff is not, I mean, because the top 10 real estate is so valuable, it's not something that's just going to show up overnight. If you think for a second that you're going to launch a website and overnight it's going to just show and rank well and drive revenue and stay that way for a long time, you're sadly mistaken. It means you're trying to trick something. I mean, these search engines sometimes don't pick up your site for a while. There's not a whole lot you can do about that. So you've got to have a certain amount of patience. And I think this is where the difference between one search company over another or an individual is huge. We're looking at 40 to 50 websites at one time that we're working on. So we know, or have a real good gut feeling, when something's a hiccup versus, and Google's going to fix it, versus when something's an actual issue. So if you're only working on 1 or 2 sites, one of the disadvantages that you may face, and what I would say is talk to your neighbor, the people here that are doing SEO too. Say, hey, you know what? I'm working on a couple of things. You're working on a couple of things. If I see my rankings go down, is it all right if I email you and see if you're seeing the same thing too? If you share that out and put that out there, I think you actually would get a lot more back and save yourself a lot of headache, because not all of you can work on 30 or 40 websites from an SEO perspective at a time. Question?
Where does DMOS fall in there, and how do you get it?
DMOS, I used to love DMOS, right? But then you started realizing that you would submit a website that wouldn't get in for 2.5 years. So then the value became so much less that when you look at the open directory, to me it's kind of valueless. I'm going to submit my link there, but it's just like, I hope it gets in. You know, you can't contact anybody. Nobody's keeping it fresh. And I think what happens is that's going to make it become less and less valuable and have less and less influence in the Google algorithm, because if nobody's watching that store, why is Google going to place such prominence that it once did? Heck, if it was up to me, I'd place more prominence on the Yahoo directory, because that means somebody's paying $300 a year to be listed there, more than likely. You know somebody's watching it. Yeah, Joe.
What are your top paid directories by trust?
Top paid directories that I trust. Good question.
Google trust.
That Google trusts.
Trust
I don't know. No, I don't. I actually have a list of about 800 directories, and we run an analysis on them based on certain data points that we see. I will tell you the first site I usually submit to is Best of the Web, as one of the non-traditional open directory, Yahoo directory kind of ones. But really before, of course, Yahoo is definitely one of the ones. It's a definite, because you know what? There's certain things spammers don't do. Spammers don't do PR. They don't spend money on. They don't spend money on $300 a year usually. So there are a lot of things that they are less likely to do, and I think that they're going to provide more and more value for a search engine to say, you know what, there's a press release that came out from a real newswire, not the free newswire that people send out to try to get some free links, or or an article submission or something like that. That's SEO. PR, you submit something out to the real wire, Google's got Google News. It knows you're being mentioned there. Google can see how often your brand is being searched. There's so many different data points they could use to differentiate a spammer site from a real site that I don't see why they wouldn't use them. I just don't see why they wouldn't. Any other questions along directory listings? I mean, it's always a big thing. The big thing I would do, honestly, with directories, find directories that are relevant to your topic first. So when I go get ready to do linking, right, first thing I do is I go after the biggies that tell Google that more than likely I'm a legit person. I'm not out there trying to spam you. I wouldn't spend this money on these links otherwise, Yahoo, etc. But then the next round that I'm looking for are on-topic sites. Sites that mention my competitors and don't mention, or my client's competitors and don't mention our site. Did they do a review? Is there some way I can, hang out in that blog for a while, see what that blogger typically writes about? Is there a way for me to inject our client into that conversation? Why? That takes time. Think about it. That takes time. Google knows that takes time. So what I'm thinking of, and one of the reasons why I'm doing this presentation, is the old way of doing SEO with it was reciprocal links. Florida update came, made a lot of people jump off the ship. People hated SEO right after the Florida update. Wanted them to they were pulling their hair out. Then it was, hey, just get a bunch of crappy directory submissions. And now Google's starting to crack down on that. They're cracking down on paid links that are just, hey, put a link to me in your footer. Your site's all about gaming, but you're linking to a site about Viagra. They're starting to catch that very easily with computers. And then what it's doing is it's causing your traffic to slide. Is anybody here kind of in that position? Maybe you won't want to admit it. But is anybody here in that position where you're starting to see your traffic from Google really trend down? A couple hands. And of course, none of you have done anything to make Google mad, right? You wouldn't have bought any links from a site. You wouldn't have used pay per post. You wouldn't have used any of those things. Trust me, these guys are smart. So try